A series of controversies is threatening to derail the opening of Disney's latest big-budget blockbuster. I'm talking about the live-action remake of Snow White, which will be out next week.
Disney's live-action remake of Snow White was not merely a box office disappointment. It was an unmitigated disaster, a colossal failure that will go down in Hollywood history as one of the most embarrassing misfires of all time. What should have been a nostalgic celebration of one of Disney's most cherished animated classics instead became a cautionary tale about corporate greed, creative bankruptcy, and the dangers of alienating an entire fan base. The backlash was swift, the controversy was relentless, and the financial losses were staggering.
Now, fans are growing more concerned about Disney's new Snow White remake, mostly because of what the lead actress has been saying to the press. Rachel Ziggler has been described as a walking PR disaster for Disney.
But how did it all go so wrong? How did a simple fairy tale adaptation become a symbol of everything that's broken in modern Hollywood? And was this doomed from the beginning, or could it have been salvaged? The problems began long before the film ever reached theaters. At the heart of the controversy was Rachel Ziggler, the young actress cast as the new Snow White. While initially seen as a fresh face who could bring new energy to the role, Zegler quickly became a lightning rod for criticism due to her public comments about the original film. In multiple interviews that resurfaced after her casting was announced, Zegler made dismissive remarks about the 1937 animated classic, calling it outdated and criticizing its romantic storyline. She even joked about how much she disliked watching it as a child. For generations of fans who grew up loving the original, these comments felt like a slap in the face, as if the star of the remake didn't even respect the source material she was supposed to be honoring.
There's more. There's always more. Let's have a listen.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story.
But Zegler's controversies didn't stop there. As the film entered production, old social media posts surfaced showing the actress making inflammatory political statements. Whether intentional or not, these posts dragged the film into the culture wars, turning what should have been a family-friendly fairy tale into a political battleground. The situation became so toxic that even casual moviegoers who might have otherwise been indifferent to the remake found themselves turned off by the constant drama surrounding its star. Disney's creative decisions only made matters worse. In their attempt to modernize the story, the studio made sweeping changes that alienated longtime fans. Most notably, they drastically reduced the role of the prince, a character who serves as a crucial element in the original fairy tale. While the intention may have been to create a more empowered version of Snow White, the execution felt clumsy and forced. Instead of crafting a nuanced update that honored the spirit of the original while making it relevant for modern audiences, Disney simply erased key elements of the story and replaced them with hollow, politically correct substitutes.
Did I frighten you?
I let myself go all the way with the drama and with the character to really celebrate the evil queen.
The handling of the Seven Dwarfs was perhaps the most glaring example of this approach gone wrong. In what was clearly an attempt to avoid controversy, Disney replaced the iconic dwarfs with a group of generic, CGI-enhanced, magical creatures of varying genders and ethnicities. This decision managed to anger nearly everyone. Traditionalists who wanted the classic dwarfs, disability advocates who saw it as pandering, and even actor Peter Dinklage, who had previously criticized Disney for considering making the film with traditional dwarfs in the first place. The result was a mess that pleased no one and became a symbol of Hollywood's worst instincts when it comes to updating classic stories. By the time the film finally limped into theaters, the damage was irreversible. The box office numbers were catastrophic, with the film failing to recoup even a fraction of its enormous budget. Industry analysts estimated losses in the hundreds of millions, making it one of Disney's biggest financial failures in recent memory. The poor performance wasn't just due to the controversies. The film itself was widely panned by critics as lifeless, charmless, and devoid of the magic that made the original so beloved. The internet's reaction was swift and brutal. Social media platforms exploded with memes mocking both the film and its star. Clips from Zegler's interviews were edited into viral videos, while critics and fans alike tore apart the film's creative decisions.
Co-stars? Sure. Friends? Not even close. E.T. has learned there has definitely been tension between Snow White leading ladies Gal Gadot and Rachel Ziegler.
What might have been a minor flop under normal circumstances became a full-blown cultural punching bag, with the backlash far exceeding the usual level of criticism for a bad movie. Behind the scenes, Disney executives went into full damage control mode. Reports surfaced of emergency meetings and frantic attempts to salvage what little they could from the disaster. The failure was so complete that it reportedly led to a reevaluation of Disney's entire live-action remake strategy, with several planned projects being quietly shelved in the aftermath. The studio that once seemed invincible was suddenly facing serious questions about its creative direction and its connection to audiences. The Snow White debacle speaks to larger issues plaguing Hollywood today. At its core, the film's failure represents a fundamental disconnect between studios and their audiences. Moviegoers have shown time and again that they reject lazy, soulless remakes.
A new trailer is out for Snow White, and if you thought that Disney was going to salvage this film after all the backlash that it received about the direction it was going in remaking the 1937 classic, you were wrong.
That prioritize political messaging over storytelling. They can tell when a film is being made out of corporate obligation rather than genuine creative passion. And they've grown tired of seeing beloved classics updated in ways that feel more like lectures than entertainment. What's perhaps most frustrating about the whole situation is that it didn't have to be this way. A live-action Snow White could have worked if it had been approached with care, respect for the source material, and a genuine desire to tell a compelling story. Instead, Disney gave audiences a film that seemed embarrassed by its own legacy, and audiences responded in kind by rejecting it entirely. As the dust settles on this historic failure, the big question is whether Hollywood will learn anything from it. The signs aren't encouraging. Even as Snow White was crashing and burning, other studios were pushing forward with similarly tone-deaf remakes and reboots.
There were reportedly not even going to be dwarfs either. Rainbow people instead until it was a fan protest. And even the word dwarfs isn't mentioned in this remake. The film has people saying, don't mock sleepy as a neurological condition. And dopey, is it really dopey? That'd be rude.
But if there's one lesson to be taken from this disaster, it's that audiences are hungry for authenticity. They want films made with heart and vision, not corporate-mandated checklists of modern sensibilities. In the end, the Snow White remake may be remembered not just as a bad movie, but as a turning point, the moment when audiences finally said enough to Hollywood's worst habits. Whether the industry actually listens remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the failure of this film will be studied for years to come as a cautionary tale about what happens when creativity takes a back seat to corporate calculation, and when filmmakers forget why people fell in love with these stories in the first place. The complete collapse of Disney's Snow White remake serves as a stark warning to the entertainment industry. It proves that audiences will not blindly accept soulless corporate products disguised as nostalgia. It shows that political messaging cannot replace genuine storytelling.
Peter Dinklage questioned why the story even included the characters at all.
They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White.
Yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So, take a step back and look at what you're doing.
And it demonstrates that even the most powerful studios are not immune to catastrophic failure when they lose touch with what makes movies magical in the first place. As Hollywood moves forward, the legacy of this failed remake should serve as a reminder that respect for the audience and respect for the source material are not optional. They're essential. Without them, even the most famous fairy tales can turn into nightmares. And in the case of Disney's Snow White, that's exactly what happened. The film wasn't just bad. It was a perfect storm of everything wrong with modern Hollywood, and its failure may well mark the beginning of the end for an era of lazy, cynical remakes. Only time will tell if the industry learns the right lessons from this disaster, or if it's doomed to repeat the same mistakes again and again. The story of this failed remake ultimately raises bigger questions about the future of Hollywood. Can the industry regain the trust of audiences? Will studios return to prioritizing creativity over corporate mandates? Or are we witnessing the slow decline of traditional Hollywood filmmaking? The answers to these questions may determine whether films like the Snow White remake remain cautionary tales or become the new normal.
You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it, the disability, like we're a disability group. You just erased that whole image.
One thing is certain, after a failure of this magnitude, nothing can ever be the same again. In the final analysis, the Snow White remake's catastrophic failure wasn't about one bad movie or one controversial star. It was about an industry that has lost its way, that has forgotten why people love movies in the first place. Until Hollywood remembers that magic can't be manufactured by committee or mandated by corporate strategy, we'll likely see more disasters like this in the future. The ball is now in Hollywood's court. Will they change, or will they continue down this path of self-destruction? The answer may determine the future of the entire industry.